Hey everyone, and welcome back to In Black and White. I'm your host, Ethan Micheal, and alongside me is my co-host, none other than a Mr.
Rick Lockhart II.
Rick. How are you going to say it? Sorry.
I was waiting for you. I thought you had that. You have the
How you
intro
doing,
today.
man?
What's up, sir? I'm doing well. How are you? How was your week been?
Well, it's been really exciting actually, because there's a couple people I booked for interviews on my other channel. So I'm I'm not going to announce it just yet, but I'm like over the moon excited. Earlier yesterday, I was testing with my video and audio with another organization to appear on their channel, and it's like I'm just sitting there as they're like testing me in the live show. I'm just like, is this actually happening to me right now? Like,
you're doing screen tests already. Look at you. Listen, for those of you that are watching that don't know, Ethan is the hardest working man right now in live streaming social media. I'm just going to put it out there.
Thank you. I do bust my ass pretty hard.
You too.
And now, do you know what? I actually have to step up my game, Rick, because up until now, I think I've made great progress. I've made a splash in many ways. Specifically with YFNA News, you, me, and Cynthia, I think have done a really good job of bringing this channel together. But now I've got to divert more time to learning, because honestly, there are so many people I bring on my channel and I talk with, and I'm like, these guys are so smart. I have a long way to go. So if I wasn't working hard enough before, I will definitely be working even harder now.
Well, you and I both, but as I've said a couple of times on this show, now that I'm working, finally,
congratulations.
We'll to weave that into. Thank you. I lost 30 pounds already. I'm really excited about that.
Nice. You look good. Slim, bro.
Yeah, I've slimmed down a bit. I'm growing this out a little bit. You know, we'll see what happens with my life. But those of you that are tuning in with us, thanks so much for joining us. Again, if you are watching us on Facebook, click on that YouTube link. Check us out on YouTube and join the conversation. And if you are on YouTube, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. As Ethan just said, we continue to build this channel with content. Your support helps with that. So subscribe to the channel. Click that little alarm button so that you can get alerts for when our shows go live. We have a lot of great content, including the 13% that airs on Mondays here on YFNA News, 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time, with hosts Cynthia, McDonald, and Arthur Ward as they talk about politics and policies that affect the Black community. A lot of great conversations there, along with In Black and White. So thank you so much for tuning in with us. It is 5 o'clock. No, it's a little bit after 5 here in Central Daylight Time. And we're so glad you're
being late. You know, we did have a couple technical issues, which I believe have been resolved. But additionally, if you like what we do, consider showing your support. You can sign up for our Patreon for just $1 a month. That's right, $1 a month. And it makes a difference, because believe it or not, I know it just looks like we're streaming from the comforts of our own home. We are, but it takes time and money to do all of this. So we could use your support to improve the quality. Like right now, I'm in the process of wanting to get Rick, another laptop, his own microphone. We really want YFNA News to be your go-to place for news.
And for content.
Let's get on to the show. So we have two exciting people, which we'll be bringing on here in a moment. And
should we tell them about what we're doing this month?
Oh yeah, what are we doing this month, Mr. Lockhart?
I think In Black and White will be covering a lot of political conversations over the next few shows as we approach the election here in America. We had our first presidential debate last night. I'm sure that'll come up in our conversation today. But be sure to tune in every week for continued conversations and your opportunity to contribute to those conversations around the political arena and the things that's taking place in our country before we hit the election.
Yeah, and as you all know, if you want to ask our guests or us questions, please tag YFNA News. So towards the end, we can scroll through and get all the questions. Just know any insults will not be tolerated, and I will not ask them. While we disagree, it can still remain respectful, and that's the key here. So any questions that come out, if you're being a jerk, I'm not going to put them on the screen. So try and be constructive. Let's make the most out of the time we have right now. You ready to do this, Rick?
It's going to be a great conversation. I can't wait. Let's go ahead and bring our guests on. Ethan, I'll let you introduce the ladies.
Awesome. So first, I'm going to bring on. Well, shall I just bring them both? Yeah. First, I will bring on Katie. Katie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And now I'd like to bring our other guest,
Katie.
Maria. Hi, Maria. Can you hear us?
Hi, how are you guys? Thanks for having me.
No.
Am I lagging? Is my biggest concern.
You are lagging. The video is lagging a little bit, but the audio seems to be okay.
Okay, as long as you can hear me rant, then we'll be good.
Yeah, there's a. So, Maria, starting with you, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, a brief background? Or maybe there is a delay.
Brief, see me?
Crap.
Is there a major delay?
Yeah, there's a delay now.
A little bit of a lag.
Are you on a phone or a computer?
A computer.
Could you try?
So I don't know.
Could you try switching to your phone?
I could.
Work too.
Yeah, let's try that since we're not having
technical difficulties here.
It's okay.
Do you want to go ahead with Katie's background really quick?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Right now.
So, Katie,
this is why we need that dollar.
Yeah. Good plug, Maria.
This is exactly why. Well done.
All right, so I guess I'll start. In comparison to a lot of people you have on the show, I know I don't have my own podcast or anything like that, but I am really active with politics. And what's nice about me is I do have a wide variety. Yes, I'm a Trump supporter. Oh,
sorry.
Yes, I'm a Trump supporter, but I'm also an atheist. I have libertarian and liberal views. I go across the board, and that's hard to find nowadays. I feel like a lot of people try to stick to one side and say, oh, I'm a Trump supporter, I got to believe this way and that way, and I got to be a Christian, stuff like that. So it's nice hearing somebody that can see both sides of things and, agree with you on some things and disagree with you on others,
I agree. You, as I referred to, atheist Republicans are like leprechauns. You can never find them, but it's always exciting because it does offer a very different perspective.
Yeah, it's nice having somebody that can say, you know what, I agree with this, but I disagree with this, you know what I mean? And be able to admit that you can support a president or a politician without it being, I 100% agree with it or 100% disagree with it,
So would you go, I'm curious, I meant to ask you this. Are you also a secular humanist or is it just atheist?
So I don't know. My political views are, with my beliefs are a little bit different. I'm simply just a pragmatist kind of person. I don't believe in trying to have the answers. I am a little bit on the secular kind of thing. I would love a little bit more of a separation from church and state. And I do share a lot of information about, I believe taxes, churches should be taxed, and we need to realize that a lot of people that are nuns and priests and whatever, it is a source of income and it is a career. But at the same time, I know there's a lot of atheists that push it a little bit too far. So I really like to be an individual. I don't like being labeled in any group because, I don't know, like I said, I'm a very one of a kind.
Yes, you definitely are. In the short time I've known you, I'd agree with that. All right, so
Katie, well, if I can, real quick, just out of curiosity, just for myself and the viewing audience too, how long have you been Republican? How long have you been atheist? How long have you been supporting Trump basically since 2016 or just kind of before that too?
Yeah, so like when Obama was first running, I supported him. I thought he was going to be a great president. And by the time that Trump was running, I really didn't like Obama anymore, just based on how his presidency went and the way he made certain things seem and the way that he felt a lot about certain issues I didn't agree with. And when it was the big Trump election, I hated them both. I couldn't get myself to vote, or I was gonna vote a third party, but I gave up on that whole election. But in the last 4 years, I have completely changed my views, and it's completely based on what's on paper and not based on emotion. And that was something that changed for me, because I was with everybody else when Trump first came up. I'm like, really? The way he talks, the way he does things, I'm like, no way. But actions speak louder than words, and that's something I've really seen in the last 4 years.
All right, so let's get into the questions. Would you mind outlining me 5 tenets that you think are representative of the Republican Party, or, for example, what you think being a Republican is?
Sorry, you said 5. What was that?
Like tenets or examples, things you think are important.
Bullet points, yeah.
So, so on the last time you had me on this show, I did kind of talk about how I don't believe that Americans are really truly Republican or truly Democrat anymore, and how things have changed a little bit. I prefer kind of saying either right or left. And at the end of the day, like I said, I can't really say that I'm a Republican or that it's really one way. It's just with my options, with the way the situation is, yes, I'm a Trump supporter. But something that I really like about the right and the party is, we've seen a lot in the last 4 years. Like I said, Trump has gotten stuff done. We see things get done, but the left just seems, when the left people ask, what can you do for us? Instead, we hear well, the right sucks and they're all bad people and they don't care about you. Well, yeah, that's all fine and dandy. Tell me what you care for me. And I don't like always hearing that everybody's a victim and that, you need us to stand up for you. No. Tell us how you're going to help us succeed by ourselves. That's what I prefer hearing. And that's something that I do like about the Republican Party, is it's not about handouts. It's not about saying you're a victim. It's about saying, no, you're tough, you're strong, and it's tough love. And that's the kind of person that I am.
Okay. Maria, are you there? You hear us? Man, we're not having luck tonight, man. This is like one of my favorite episodes, and we're not having any luck. Can you hear?
I know.
Okay, we'll wait till she can hear us, hopefully. Okay. Sorry. I can't get my words out right now. Okay, so we got your what you think being a Republican Party is. Do you think Trump is a representation of the bullet points you just gave?
I believe Trump personally is more focused on what a more traditional Republican Party. And that's one of his major flaws, personally, in my opinion. But so like I said, I support Trump, but I'm not a Christian. And there's a lot of things that I think that Trump could do better with, because he's too focused on the people that's, want to call everybody else a snowflake, and everybody that wants to call people libtards and stuff like that. I want a president that is representative of the American people and says, hey, this is the tough love that I give, but at the same time, I want him to be willing to represent more people. And that's something that you do see a lot with Republican politicians. That is a major flaw.
No connection.
Can you hear us? Man. Okay.
I know. Okay. But it's much more.
So, Katie, just to be.
When you say traditional Republican, can you give me an example of what you mean by that?
So, like I said, the Christianity kind of feel for things, the anti-abortion, the much more old school kind of Republican that we hear about. And that's something that does need to evolve. And like I said, kind of the more, I don't want to call it extremist, but the more almost media-led Republican. The idea that we all need to call people snowflakes and, it needs to be Confederate flag waving and stuff like that. It's not necessary to only represent those kinds of people, and like I said, I don't know if I think I brought this up in the last time I was in here too. The walk away campaign is a huge thing that has happened in the last couple of years since Trump has been in office, and it's Democrats that are walking away from the Democratic Party. It's people that have seen that joined the Democratic Party because they were about social justice and caring about other people and anti-bigotry, but they feel like that's what they're seeing with their party. And the Republican Party is seeing such a more wide variety of supporters for Trump. And at the end of the day, it's not about his rhetoric or his persona or the way he talks and does things. It's about what's on paper,
And Katie, if I can, real quick, I just out of curiosity, you mentioned that before. What's on paper? Because what I'm getting from you, it sounds to me like I would say more of like a liberal Republican, right? Like, and as you mentioned, you're more of a libertarian.
Did we lose you? Oh, come on!
I lost you. I know. I'm like, oh my goodness.
There we go.
Okay. Sorry. So,
this is why we need those Patreon.
We get Republicans on, and the internet breaks. Like,
exactly.
I don't want Republicans on the channel.
I see, but and Katie, I have to apologize because I think it's continually being referred to as Republican, but it sounds to me like you're not really Republican. And if you were to classify yourself as a Republican, it's more like a liberal Republican, which is, I think you coined the term for yourself, libertarian, more so than any of the right or left parties. Am I correct there?
I mean, so kind of like I said, something that's interesting to me, I don't apply to any one group. I have a variety, and that's what's nice about me. I'm on here because I'm a Trump supporter, not necessarily a Republican.
So let me address that, if I can, real quick. I'm sorry, Ethan, just real quick. The question that I had for you was, you mentioned about things that he's done that's on paper. Mm-hmm. Can you be a little bit more specific in identifying some of those things? So
like I said, for example, out on TV and in that persona, you hear about him being this big Christian, very traditional, whatever. However, this year, something that was really kind of exciting to me is he put in an order that if you apply for a job for the federal government, it's going to be based on portfolio and skill. It's not going to be based on education and degree. That's huge because in the last, 10 years, look at how technology has changed. And at the end of the day, there's nothing that people can't teach them, that they can get from a school that they can't teach themselves. And we've seen that a lot this year with COVID. Schools can't open and everything's resulted to e-learning. And at the end of the day, most of these classes don't really have professors anymore because it's all online. These students are teaching themselves the things that they need to in order to get these degrees. And there are so many people that are so skilled and so fantastic at, being at their full potential, but they can't afford the schooling. They can't get through the hurdles, but they could do the job. And, people think that Trump is so against helping people that are struggling, that are down. This is huge. This is an opportunity for people that don't have the means to be able to be successful, to have a chance. And I hope that other businesses and outside things take this example and we move in a new direction.
So I want to jump back real quick to a couple of things that were said earlier on, and you had referenced the the walk away campaign. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's entirely. I don't want to say not relevant, but because we've also, on the flip side, we've got the Lincoln Project, who is completely against Trump. So there are plenty of Republicans that have walked away from the Republican Party, myself included. 2016. I remember being excited about Donald Trump. Like, I remember thinking, man, this guy, he doesn't follow the political system. He is gonna, take care of shit. Like, this will be something we need. And I am so happy that before the election, my mind changed. So there are people on both sides flipping. Now, in terms of the Republican Party and evolving, in many ways, the Republican Party has regressed away.
I lost you for a minute. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Real quick, let's test Maria one more time. If that doesn't work,
let's bring Maria back on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll focus on Katie, and maybe we can bring Maria back next week. Okay. So, in many ways, the Republican
Party, Katie, it's all you. You got this.
The Republican Party has gone away from like when they were more for civil rights. So, additionally, starting with Reagan, when they removed the 90% tax bracket from corporations, from that moment forward, the Republican Party seems more interested in big business and not the little man like they used to be. And they seem more invested and interested in just putting money back into their own pockets. In my opinion, we were much better off before Reagan. So I don't think the Republican Party is evolving. It would be nice if they did, but I think in many ways they're regressing, and Donald Trump is pandering or catering to his Christian audience that wants, Christianity in the government, particularly, when he decided, I'm not going to say gas because there are people who said it was just smoke. I wasn't there. So smoke or gas, whatever you want to call it, so he could walk by and get a photo shoot with a Bible. And I guess that's where I would get confused on why, when things like that are happening, when the Republican Party is moving further and further to the right and only focused on a few things, like abortion being one of them, why do you still think that that is accurate of your individual values as a person?
So, going a little bit further back, when you were talking about more of the top 10% and stuff like that, personally, I don't think either side really does support lower class or middle class for that matter. And honestly, I personally think the Democrats are worse for that. They like people to be sick. They like people to be poor. They like people to be dependent. So that's kind of where I disagree. And I know that you're saying, they reward the top 10% too much. And I will agree. I really hope that one day we evolve to a point where we get politicians in that do want to tax and make things fair. But right now, I really don't see either option really going that way. At the end of the day, both sides get paid to do what people that make a lot of money want. But
if I can jump in for a second, one of the things that I think that is disturbing for me when it comes to individuals like yourself who do support Trump and call out want the Republican Party to evolve, but we blast the left on the things that they are or aren't doing. I don't really ever hear Trump, supporting the Republican Party, but I do consistently hear his bashing of the left consistently. Like, we know that every time he gets up, there's something he's going to say bashing the left. And it sounds to me like, Katie, you also agree with some of those things. And I'll say that when you talk about the left, they are very much a government dependent type of party. They want people to depend on the government, healthcare, financially, all of those things. We get that. However, this is the party, and I mean the left specifically, this is the party that will bring the conversations that need to be had about society and the struggles of society to the forefront. When we have the issues that we're facing now in our country, I mean, I don't know, tell me about times where you've experienced or you've heard or you've seen Trump actually discuss some of the things that we have eroding our country right now to the forefront in an effort to ban them or bash that as well.
So part of, I'm trying to figure out where I was going. So one of my things here is, at the end of the day, I know that we talk about them rewarding all these big businesses and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, these are the big businesses that are giving people jobs. And the Democrats just calling out all of these issues that are happening, I don't see them giving a whole lot of solutions. And at the end of the day, we all talk about Trump being this businessman and whatever. There are opportunities for people to get somewhere in life. And like I said, even the whole, not requiring college to get certain, jobs and stuff like that. If that's something that we push forward, that's a way for people to actually work hard and be able to get somewhere in life without needing the money for it. So that's kind of a solution.
I guess where I'm kind of confused, because it sounds like you're kind of echoing some of the things Donald Trump says about the Democratic Party. Now, I'll admit, of course, there are people on the left, which I would argue is a minority, that want people on all these programs. I'm not really sure what you mean, but the majority of the people I know, and my understanding of the Democratic Party, is they just actually want to help people. Now, are they going about it the right way? Is the Democratic Party broken? Absolutely, because right now, unlike the Republican Party has their marketing down to a science. They have their 5 points. Trump echoes it every time, and they stick with those with their core audience. The Democratic Party is trying to be more inclusive, which at times makes them seem like they're all over the place. So they don't have that solid foundation, in my opinion.
That's where I will definitely disagree with you. You talk about the Democratic Party seeming to care about people more. At the end of the day, I really disagree. I've lived in Illinois my entire life, which is completely Democratic and is totally on that end.
Wait. Actually, Illinois, the only thing that makes Illinois Democratic is the Chicagoland area and Springfield.
And that's where
the rest of the state is definitely Republican. Right. So I just want people who are watching, I want them to understand, just to be clear, the only thing that makes us is Chicago. Please continue. I'm sorry.
All of my years were spent on the northwest side of Chicago. It was only until I became an adult and really realized, I'm like, why do I live here when I can live for cheap in the suburbs? But even then, I'm right outside of the city. But so my point is, I've seen these Democratic governors say they want to help people. Look at Pat Quinn. You got Quinn when he retired from, supposedly taking care of Illinois, as we may put it. He only put in $200,000 towards his retirement fund, but he takes out $2 million a year from Illinois for retirement. So I guess something that I kind of notice a lot with a lot of Democratic politicians is they say they help people, and they say, if you elect me, I'm here to care. And they give you a penny, but they're taking $1 behind everybody else's back.
Did you say $2 million a year?
I believe it's. I could be wrong, but I know for
pension over the entirety of his lifetime. So
is it?
Yes, former Pat Governor Quinn contributed less than $200,000 to his retirement, but is set to draw more than $2 million in pension over the entirety of his lifetime.
But so my mistake. But either way, that's a huge difference. And, they say, okay, well, we're going to charge you iPass because we want to help you be able to be on the road safely. And, I believe iPass originally started to help the education system. And we're seeing how well that's gone.
So, real quick.
In Illinois.
You're fine.
Sorry, Rick. Let's try and move back towards specifically like Donald Trump and the support for him. Now, did you watch the debate last night?
I did, and to be totally honest, I'm avoiding talking about it a little bit, mostly because it's nothing to support, like for me to ignore it so that people agree with me more. It's a matter of both sides were messy. If I were to simply go anything based off of the debate.
Well, I have questions that go into essentially the Republican Party. For one, what are your thoughts on Donald Trump not outright condemning outright condemning white supremacists and his avoidance and workaround, tactful workaround of that question? Like, why not just say, I condemn white supremacy and I don't want your support? Like, that would send a pretty powerful and clear message.
Katie, if I can, before you answer that, we don't even have to base this off of the debate. Let's just talk about over the term, or the term that we've been facing or fighting racial injustice very recently. He still has not openly condemned white supremacy or has discussed or brought to the forefront that systemic racism is a problem in our country. Help me understand your navigating of that.
Yeah, so I've been talking a lot about this over the last 24 hours a little bit, and at the end of the day, I think I was trying to find a way to word this properly. At the end of the day, people thinking that he is supposed to is kind of almost wrong. It's almost like a demeaning question. At the end of the day, he doesn't fund any of them. He's not, supporting any of them, and people expect him to do this. And I guess it's almost like, I'm not going to give you what you want because you don't deserve what you want, almost. I don't know if that makes sense. And I know at the end of the day, it's probably
Crap.
sorry.
Okay.
It may have almost been a little bit of a backfire, but it follows Trump's rhetoric of not giving people what they want because they are basing things off of emotion and they want to tear him down based on feelings and stuff like that. It's a matter of, no, I don't want to give you what you want just because you want to base things off of emotion. And
So if I may interrupt for a second, Katie, how long have you been, are you familiar with, let's start with this. Are you familiar with the Central Park Five or the Exonerated Five?
No.
Okay. So just briefly an overview of the story. 5 young men, boys actually, who were convicted of the rape and beating of a white woman in Central Park. I think this was back in maybe the late 80s or early 90s. They were sentenced to, 4 of them were sentenced to juvenile, 1 was sentenced to prison. And at the end of all of it, it was found out that there was corrupt practices by the police that convicted the boys and the prosecutor. They ran with conviction of the boys just to have someone convicted, and they incorrectly convicted all 5 of them. Horrible things happened to these 5 young men, and their lives were changed because of it. I want you to know that the president that you support took out a ad in one of the New York papers calling for the death sentence to be reinstated in New York so that these 5 could receive the death sentence because he thought they raped and tortured or beat this white woman jogging in Central Park. He has yet to retract that statement after all of the evidence has and a conviction has occurred from a confession of someone who actually did it. My concern is when we talk about his inability to support the conversations that need to be had around racism, it's not just about not giving people what they want. This is a conversation that America has needed to have for centuries. And as someone who is a leader, wouldn't you say that it's important for the leader of that country to have or engage in that conversation?
Yes, I guess that does make sense. However, I think a huge part of it, again, has to go with him not appearing weak or standing down to the opposite side. And again, part of that is a strength, but another part of it is a weakness, which all goes back to him not being supportive of the whole American people. It's a matter of this is the left, this is the enemy. And, like I said, a huge part of that is a weakness, always appearing strong and not, apologizing or something like that. Not showing weakness can be a good thing, but I think he could do a better job at being a part of both sides. He is a polarizing president, and that's one of his biggest flaws. But at the same time, how many politicians do you think are racist? You hear about these dominatrix and all kinds of prostitutes going on like Oprah talking about, yeah, I got like 15 politicians that see me monthly. At the end of the day, they're all there's something going on with all of them. But at the end of the day, I think people thinking that Trump has this racist rhetoric or that he's the reason that racism is a big issue now is more based on the media and less actually based on Trump.
So, okay, here's where I want to push back a little bit. One, pointing out that other politicians are racist doesn't justify, or excuse Donald Trump being racist. So I kind of find that point to be irrelevant.
So my point is Trump does kind of lay his dirty laundry on the table for people to see. I'd much rather prefer that than the crooked politician with the crooked smile doing everything behind closed doors.
So, okay, going into things Trump says. So
we need a moment. We need a moment.
Okay.
I think I don't.
Even the whole. Sorry,
we lost you.
But yeah, my point is I'd rather have somebody lay things out and be honest than me to wonder what's going on behind closed doors. We hear a lot about Walmart and the Clintons and what happened in Arkansas and how there's so many things that we secretly know that are going on, but we don't have proof or we don't know. I'd much rather have something more laid on the table.
So, okay, do you think I am an honest person or, forthcoming about my thoughts and my beliefs?
Yeah.
Do I do that in an asshole way? I mean, I'm sure there's times I've made offhanded comments, but would you compare me to
stop the timer. Sorry.
Would you compare me to someone like Donald Trump?
No. And like I said, at the end of the day, he's not a politician and he's not politically correct. And all I think that the only flaw is that he could do a better job at making himself appear as serving the whole country and the opposite side.
So there is, I guess where I'm struggling here is it sounds like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, so please correct me. It sounds like you're okay with things Trump says and does because he's open about it. So essentially, hey, I can be an asshole, a sexist, a racist, but as long as I'm forthcoming with it, it's okay. That's
the one part I will disagree is so even like the statements that we hear that are sexist. How many times have you said something to a friend or joking around? Even I've said things to my friends. If it was taken out of context or even like times I'm like, hey, bitch, what'd you do? Like completely joking around. That doesn't make me a sexist or anything else. It's just me talking to people. And if people took it out of context, sure, it would look way worse than you think.
How do you take, like, I can kiss them and force myself on them and grab them by the P word out of context? Like, what context is that language acceptable? Because I can tell you, I've been a part of locker room talk, and the only people that talk like that are fucking assholes that I would not trust around a woman.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, people that are rich, I'm sure it's kind of true. I'm sure there are plenty of situations where there are women that are openly trying to get themselves in a situation with somebody in power. And I'm sure a lot of times people say things that are an exaggeration, and a lot of guys do talk dirty. I work in a casino. I deal with rich people all the time. Most of them are fathers. Most of them have never raped a woman, and most of them employ women and, accept them in the workplace and, whatever. But it's a very different thing if you're at a club or at a party and, you're in a sexualized situation in comparison to a professional place.
I'm sorry, but yes, you do make concessions. Like, obviously, I'm not going to say to, although I say a lot, I wouldn't say something to HR that I would say something different in a bar than I would say to my HR department. But that still doesn't excuse outright horrendous behavior.
Well,
like, jokes about having to force themselves on a woman and them being okay with it. And furthermore, I don't care if a woman unintentionally puts herself in that situation, that doesn't give him the right to force himself on her. There needs to be clear and comfortable consent.
Here's my point, though. Saying you're forcing yourselves on somebody is really different than doing. And at the end of the day, choosing the right words can make something look a lot worse than what it is.
Okay, I agree with you, because I'm one to put my sorry, Rick, give me 1 second. I'm one to put my foot in my mouth, you know. But do you know what happens when I do that? I apologize. Apologies isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of maturity, and you know, someone you can count on and trust, in my opinion.
So, and going back to my point too, everything that I support Trump in is on paper. This is all based on emotions and how I should feel as a woman, or how I should, as how somebody should feel as a minority. It's about what's getting done in the country, not about what he does in his free time. And like I said, most of these politicians are the same way. Until we overthrow the government and redo it, you're getting a racist or a sexist or whatever situation. All of these men have been paying for women's attention and have been flashing their money around to be able to grab women and probably force themselves on them. So until you overthrow the government, that's not going away.
But you're okay then with voting for someone?
Right. I just want to make sure. Right. So
you're
okay with that?
Everyone does it.
Until I rule the world and I can change it, I'm going to have to be.
You can change it right now by not voting for Donald Trump.
And who? Vote for the child molester?
I can't. I'm not saying vote for Biden. I'm saying why. So okay, you and I
have said in the last debate that we had, realistically, you only got two choices. There's never been a time that a third party has, is going to get elected. We've seen one situation where who was it? Eisenhower came in second with a third party. Somebody came in second with a third party, but it's never actually gotten that far. So somebody's got to get elected president. It's going to happen. And it's going to be only one of these two until we get funding to third parties, until we get people that actively want to change the way that, we are given options. This is what's going to happen.
So
it's going to happen.
Let me jump in for a second here, Katie, because the first thing that I want to address is you mentioning again the activities or accomplishments that he's managed to achieve on paper while he's been in office, right? And the things that he's been able to accomplish in his presidency, and not being drawn to the emotional side of his actions. And it almost seems to me like you're giving him a bit of allowance or some consent there. But let's step away from that for a second, and let's address a few things about what he has or has not done. If I can change lanes for a second, and we look at his whole leadership during this pandemic, right, and the lives that we've lost under his watch. Katie, I don't know what you do. You said you work at a casino. I venture to guess that you've been in positions where you've worked for, say, a manager who is probably the best manager or the best leader that you've worked for. And I can almost guarantee that the one characteristic that you do find is when something happens that's a detriment to the operations that you're overseeing as a leader, you take ownership for that, right? So talk to me about how you can justify him being in the highest position in our land, being able to lose over 200,000. Some feedback there, yeah. How we've lost over 200,000 citizens in our country, and that's okay.
Well, first of all, I mean, he's not Superman. He can't just stop coronavirus, and it's happening all over the world. It's not an American thing. If it were an American thing, sure. But at the same time,
he's running America, right? So talk to me about let's keep it in America. So talk to me about how it's justifiable. No, he's not Superman, but he is the leader of our country. So how do you justify the actions that he did or did not take on paper or in his actions that ended up in us losing the amount of people that we did when scientists have already proven that it could have been?
No, we were going to lose the same amount of people no matter what the.
Hello?
We need a minute again. She'll be back in just a second.
Okay,
sorry, folks, for those of you all that are watching. Okay, she's back.
So at the end of the day,
you said we were going to lose.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's president. People are going to die. That's like saying that we could blame other people. You know, we could have blamed Obama for how many people died in car accidents during his presidency. That makes no sense. I could see if he introduced coronavirus somehow to Americans, or if it was only Americans facing this issue, but it's not. It's a situation all over the world. That it makes no sense. It's not. They have no relation with each other.
That's actually not entirely accurate. So the problem here is, yes, Trump did not cause corona. Trump did not invite corona in here. I can see that. Of course not.
Absolutely.
That would be absurd. However, he, until I believe 5 weeks ago, at no point came out and said, "Hey, American people, I need you to start wearing masks." He ridiculed the science.
So you're talking to somebody. You're talking to somebody that has done research through the CDC website, if that's a credible source by your opinion.
Okay.
It's not a deadly virus. It really isn't. It's deadly to those with an average of 2.6 underlying health conditions. And that's based on CDC's data out of all the deaths, out of all the positive cases. So with the research that I've done on this on my own to form my own opinion, I don't get any information from anywhere else. You know, this is all based on CDC's data.
Okay.
Basically, I forget what the percentage of positive cases, how many that is that died, and this is only based on America. But out of that percentage, the CDC admitted that only 6% of the deaths were healthy people. And out of that 6%, that means I calculated all this out. I'm not going to go through it again. But out of all positive cases, if you are a completely healthy individual, you have a 0.1% chance of dying of coronavirus.
Okay, but so we still have over 200,000 dead. And even so, clearly this is a deadly.
So that means that if they got the flu, if they got pneumonia, if they were in any other situation, they probably would have died. This is just another thing on the list that these people were vulnerable to.
Well, Katie, let's address this as the topic of our conversation is for. We're talking about Trump and his inaction or actions that he took to cause or keep our country and our citizens safe, right? He polarized wearing a mask. He made fun of people wearing masks, or people included. And at the end of the day, wait, hold on. Let me finish. So when we talk about how we're supporting this leader who's supposed to be the leader of all Americans, and as you've already said in this stream, he needs to do a better job of being a president for all of Americans, because as we do know, the coronavirus has hit the Black and brown communities extra hard because of the disparities in healthcare, right? You find that most people in Black and brown communities have about 2.6 underlying health conditions already. That's a whole nother conversation. But when we talk about him not being the president for all of the American people, here we have the 200,000 deaths now that we're at or over, because he wasn't a president for the American people.
So what you're saying is, instead of being a president for how many people do we have in the country? I don't know the exact population number.
Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
That's what those are for.
328 million as of 2000.
Well, 328 million, because he wasn't representative of 200,000. That means he doesn't represent the majority.
I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is what he did was politicize what scientists and data that was out there. He made fun of, right? How was that presidential?
Well, and here's the thing I'd like to point out real quick, Katie, is one thing that I've noticed typically I've seen this significantly on the right, and I am no expert by any means, but they just don't understand science. They don't understand the scientific process in any means. And they will continually discredit people like Dr. Fauci and other representatives because new information came available and they changed their position. It's
so
like,
what about the information I just gave you? This is from the CDC, the same people that were telling you to wear a mask. They based all of this on a 0.17% chance of dying unless you were already vulnerable to other sicknesses and common colds.
So they
but
said wear a
clearly
mask.
people are still vulnerable. And do they not say wear a mask? Isn't that not a CDC recommendation?
So why didn't
Right.
they say wear a mask for the flu and for everything else? That the people that died from coronavirus, the majority, these are the people that were already vulnerable. Why weren't they telling them to wear a mask before coronavirus? Because they were just as vulnerable. And that's the point. This whole thing was blown out of proportion. It was to make people on edge for this election. At the end of the day, it should be ridiculed because it was, it's election year. We need to get people scared. We need to get people riled. We need to get people angry at each other. That's all coronavirus is. And at the end of the day, this country was founded on the idea that you're your own person. You have the freedom to be able to succeed. Coronavirus was a situation where we said, because other people can't succeed and can't survive and can't handle, all the able-bodied people needed to lose freedom for that. And that is not how America should be.
Katie, I'm sorry. Putting a mask on is not losing freedom. That's ridiculous.
No, but having people
let's talk about slavery and shadow slavery.
Not being able to work for 3 months. Not being able to work for 3 months. People losing their businesses, losing employees.
Listen,
yes, I don't.
Katie,
here's the thing.
I've been out of work for 6 months. I get it. I understand.
Exactly.
So, question one: would you rather lose your business or lose your life?
Me? I mean, in a situation like things are, I'd rather risk my life.
You're right. I was going to say you have to be careful when you're asking that question. When you're asking that question, because and help me out or correct me if I'm wrong, Katie. You're saying you're asking a question to someone who believes that if you're healthy, you're based on the CDC information that she received, she's not going to lose her life. So it's not about losing her life, risking her life.
So, and here's the thing: if I were running the country and this whole thing were to come up to me, I would have said, you are mandated to stay home if you have over 2 health conditions. You are not allowed to work. You can go on unemployment, so on and so forth. And at the end of the day,
as a president, right? That's what you would have done. So how do you support a president who did not do that?
Because at the end of the day, before I got cut off, something that I was going to say too is the president doesn't make the rules. At the end of the day, this is a state government decision. We see Florida saying, we are not closing anymore. We are not dealing with this anymore. We are going this way. And you have places like here that are saying, no. You guys are wearing a mask. If we go up, we're closing again. Don't think that this, it's a state decision. It's not a presidential decision. I should have said if I ran a state, this is how I would do it, because realistically, that's who's in charge of these things. And so, like I said, I don't agree that Trump disagrees with abortion. That's a state decision. At the end of the day, he can think whatever he wants. It's about the states.
Okay, you're right. The states have the power. But here's the thing. All Trump had to do is come out and say, American people, we need to, here's what I would do if I was president. And I think I could easily do a better job than this guy, but I can't prove it, unfortunately, because I have no way to run for president at this point. But that being said, let me finish my statement, please. So, darn it, I hate when that happens.
You were saying you would go out there and tell everybody to wear a mask, right?
Of course. Why not come out and say, American people, we need to work together on this. We need your help. I am going to ask you to wear a mask. Instead, he chose to ridicule people, downplay it, retweet a video of that essentially discredited the coronavirus, calling it hype, from a lady who talked about demon sperm. I mean, this is embarrassing.
So like I said, I discredit it with basic math on the CDC website. At the end of the day, it's nothing different. I told you, for people that are healthy, it's not dangerous. And
wait. Hold on. Actually, if I remember correct, Katie, what you said was there is a low death percentage, correct?
Yeah.
Which means you can still die from it, correct?
It's an average of a 0%.
Still could potentially die from it, and we still have
less than
over
200,000
people dead from the virus.
If you have health conditions,
lack of leadership. Well, I mean, what you just said by your own admission of the CDC guidelines, even if it's less than 1%, that means people are dying. And here's the problem that I think that we're facing when we talk about this. It's very similar to systemic racism. When you don't talk about it, when you don't bring it to the forefront, when you just kind of brush it off, we're not putting value in the lives that are lost. Here we have people who, yes, were healthy, and they may not make the... Hold on, let me finish. Maybe we don't have the amount of deaths that equal to people who have underlying health conditions, but that doesn't mean that the loss of life is any less. And yes, you can throw in the death rate for other viruses like the flu, but at this point, the virus is relatively young. We don't know enough about it. Scientists don't know enough about it. We've only had it for maybe about 6 months. So I find it difficult to understand how we can justify just because people are healthy and dying at a low percentage rate doesn't mean that we need to take that as seriously.
So here's my problem. You guys aren't considering the lives of healthy people then, because now everything is only based on people that are vulnerable. You can't expect anybody to do anything for anyone else just because somebody else needs it. You tell people you need to do what you have to do to be safe. You do what you need to do for you. You don't expect people to do things for other people. And that's the difference.
And that's my problem with the Republican Party and why I gave that up. Because like I used to constantly say, I'm going to worry about myself. I'm going to put my hard work in. Fuck everybody else. We are a civilized society. We can do better than what we're doing. And Trump and Biden, neither of them are the answer. But the idea that Trump, a man who continually discredits science, is even an option is just off the wall to me.
So at the end of the day, like I said, I base it on individualism. You can't expect people to always help each other. You can't expect people to constantly put themselves down for other people.
How is putting a mask on putting themselves down?
Is that putting themselves down? I'm sorry.
How much do masks cost at your local Walgreens? Over by me, it's at least $35. And that's
$10
for a couple of
Costco. Here, so
your issue,
$10.
So I don't have a Costco membership.
So your issue is the cost of the masks.
If they were free, if people didn't have problems breathing in them and all sorts of other things that we're kind of seeing that we don't know about.
Have problems breathing, and Costco will actually hand out a mask. That's actually
a myth and has
most
been debunked
places will. Exactly.
At the end of the day.
Well, you know what, Katie. But all right, let's do this, because it seems to me that when we talk about coronavirus and President Trump's lack of inaction, or even action in this case, it's not suitable for a discussion that's going to dissuade you, I guess, in a sense of his leadership. In your opinion, it seems that his leadership was sound and he did an efficient job, all that he can, in being in the position that he was in. Am I correct in understanding that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I have a question for you about when we talk about political correctness, because it seems to me earlier in our conversation, you mentioned how he likes to, or how he's able to just kind of put it all out on the table, right? He bears it all. He doesn't hide behind, and you'd rather have a politician who doesn't hide behind, lies or so on and so forth, but rather kind of puts things out on the table. Am I correct in assuming that, or did I assess that correctly?
On the other hand, though, like I said, I'm not necessarily saying that he's openly a racist or a sexist. Those are
not going to say that at all.
Have drawn.
Not going in that direction at all. So
yeah.
Let's talk about when we look at what it means to be politically correct. I have to share something with you and say to people who are watching. When I hear people who say they don't want political correctness, to me, what that sounds like is, I want to be able to use the N-word whenever and however I can, because I'm an American citizen. So help me understand why it's important to you that we do away with political correctness.
So, I mean, there's a huge difference between swearing and being, or whatever. There's a difference between being, overly ridiculous, or even how we see in Hollywood and music, or, things like that. It's very different than, what Trump said on his free time in comparison to speeches and whatever. Don't get me wrong. He's not a good, speaker either, but whatever. But so a good comparison is Obama. Great speaker, image wise, great looking person, and that's what really drew me to him when he was first running. But
yes, people say I look like him sometimes. I just want to make sure.
Oh,
sorry.
you're handsome. Don't even worry about it.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I can't reason with this idea that we need to look at this guy who seems nice and smiles, but as he's hitting a button to bomb innocent people all day long, or sending more people out to war, or all the different things that we kind of see go on with political correct nature. I mean, at the end of the day, I'd rather base things on paper and know what somebody's doing than to say, oh, they seem nice, you know what I mean? Or, oh, they hold themselves up really nicely.
So let's say let's say for sake of argument, he does good things on paper. No matter what he does in his personal life, no matter the people he's hurt or things he's said, you're saying, I don't care. He can essentially do whatever he wants in his personal life. As long as on paper he does what I want.
I think people shouldn't be focused on what he does in his personal life. That's my point.
Why wouldn't we be? He has a history of sexually harassing women. How many women have come forward with this? Now, even if we say that's done by the liberal media, let's say 1%? 1% is still too many. Any woman being harassed, sexually harassed. I don't understand how you can be okay with, hey, I don't care what he does as a person, as long as he does the things I like on paper. He is visibly,
because everything that you mentioned are claims,
dividing this country day in and day out. He goes on Twitter. He insults people regularly. He refers to the radical left, which I assure you the radical left is a minuscule percentage of the actual left. And then he turns them all into these violent protesters that are socialist and want to take away your rights. And it's complete and utter fake bullshit. There's no truth to any of those statements. And yet he seems content insulting people, and you're okay with that.
So again, this is all things that don't matter. It doesn't affect you as an American. What affects you as an American is what is on paper. Maybe if we stop paying attention to, an insult here and an insult there. I care about what is. All right, am I still here?
You're here. We just can't see your video.
Right.
I
think you might have hit the cat video there. There you go.
Okay.
You're okay with that this country is tearing itself apart, and Donald Trump can easily resolve this situation by coming forward with a statement and saying to the Black community, I hear you. I want to work with you. Systemic racism is a problem. I would ask that we work together and find a solution to it. But instead, he chooses to villainize them and get the country to hate each other.
Did you not see the police reform bill and how, he did have plans for this, and how we've heard a lot of these things work this way? At the end of the day, I mean, yeah, the rioting and looting is wrong and it should be stopped. And I would want my president to speak about that. You know what I mean? And I mean, again, I can't base things off of what the media, wants to say that who he offended. You know what I mean?
Well, Katie, if I can, I think right now, unfortunately, what we're looking at, I'm misunderstanding when it comes to you. What's that?
Sorry, I lost you for a second. I heard you.
I think that the misunderstanding that I'm toiling with right now is, as you say, at the end of the day, this is the representation of our country, right? The president of the United States is the representation of our company. Of our country, excuse me. And it's that persona, it's that personality, it's that person that should be representing us, all of us, in some regard. He has managed to divide our country in such a way that it doesn't represent who or what America is. So I'm having a bit of a difficult time understanding how it's okay to support that just because of what by your words, what he's done on paper, which we really haven't covered, but one thing that you mentioned about what he's done for the federal offices and their ability to get jobs, but he's also taken away racial bias training out of the federal jobs too. So, I mean, what has he really done on paper? But and you say he's done things on paper, but there really still remain to be seen the effects of what he's done on paper. For example, people have said that he's contributed to HBCUs an enormous amount. And I can tell you that none of that money, A, came from him, or B, has actually gone to HBCUs. For those that are watching, or for Katie, historically black colleges and universities is what HBCUs stands for, right? So what it sounds like to me is you're okay with the president representing our country that has polarized our country only because of what he's done on paper, but not in a sense of pride and ability to represent our country. Is that correct?
No, I completely disagree, because at the end of the day, it's media and people that want to focus on what Trump said, and they take it out of context. And
crap, we lost you.
Those of you all in the comments, I understand it's a lot. We'll get to some of them in just a bit.
And they try to make it sound, but at the end of the day, he is respected by a lot of different people. We've seen what's happened, with Korea, and we've seen what happened what happened with the Middle East and stuff like that. At the end of the day,
what happened, Katie? Help me understand, because I'm a little lost. What happened in Korea and in the Middle East?
So we had the summit with Kim Jong-un, and then I'd have to look up exactly. Wasn't it like Jerusalem and Trump and some sort of peace treaty or something? I'd have to
he moved some things and he pissed some people off and divided yet another area of our world.
I don't know about that. But at the end of the day, it's
the Jews and the Muslims have now been divided over the land that's supposed to be the capital in the Middle East.
Which is nothing new. That's not something that's changed. That's always been a thing.
Well, I mean, sure, but again, what I'm saying is you're quoting something that you think that he's done in an area that has not really benefited A, America, or B, the world. In fact, it probably just benefited his own pocket. I think, unfortunately, we've come to a position that we have to acknowledge that if Trump is not reelected in November, Trump's probably going to jail. So his whole basis of trying to get reelected is not for the benefit of the American people, but rather to benefit himself so that he stays a free man.
This is all opinionated.
Okay. Yeah.
No. I guess that's not really opinionated. That's more so. Go ahead, Ethan.
What are your thoughts on the fact that he, during the debate last night, essentially admitted to the fact that the only reason he wants the new Supreme Court justice to be appointed is to essentially protect his job?
So it's funny about that. So can you guys still hear me? Oh my goodness.
We can hear you. Yes. Yeah.
I don't know why it keeps going out like that. Trying. Anyway, I guess I'll just talk without the mic for a minute. Or without the cam. But at the end of there we go. At the end of the day, it really bothers me the way the media portrayed this Supreme Court justice. If you actually look into her, she has so many.
Sorry, Katie, that wasn't the question. What are your thoughts on the fact that he outright admitted that the only reason he wanted this, or the main reason he wants this, is to protect his job?
I would have to look into that exact quote because it must have been something I missed, because I'd want to actually see the interpretation of it and I'd want to hear it live, because at the end of the day, I don't know where exactly it was said, and I can't, we've heard plenty of times where, oh, Trump said this, that, and whatever, but then you actually listen to it or you actually see it and it's like, no, that's not exactly what was said.
Okay. I mean, all I can do at this point is I can give you my word for it because I was listening to the entirety of the debate, but I understand if you can't accept that. I guess there's a few other things I want to touch base on, because I have a few questions I haven't gotten to audience questions. And if you are watching and you have questions, please tag YFNA News. Jumping back to what we talked about earlier, I guess, one, are you comfortable right now outright condemning white supremacy?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Are you,
Anyway, yeah, I have no problem with that at all.
all right. Do you think it's important for the President of the United States to outright condemn white supremacy?
Yeah, I mean, it's not I wouldn't say I consider it super important. It should be just a given. No president is going to openly support it. You know what I mean? Like I said, I probably would have done it differently. And at the end of the day, I don't know where this weird feedback I'm hearing is coming from.
Yeah, it sounds there's like a clicking going on.
Yeah, it's not on my end. Anyway.
Let me mute Rick and see if that makes a difference.
Okay.
Okay. So okay. That being said, do you what are your thoughts on him also not agreeing to a complete peaceful transfer of power and dodging the question, and additionally making the comment when asked if you would ask your audience to stand down, he said stand by. Why would he ask a violent group to stand by, and why would he not outright say he wants a peaceful transition of power? Because, for example, on the flip side, Joe Biden very clearly stated that violence is never acceptable. Like, he had no problem giving that message to the left. So why does Trump seem to have a problem with admitting this? And why did he ask a violent group to stand by?
Stand by could have simply just been a poor choice of words. Like I said, Trump by no means is a good speaker, or, you know, is really good about relaying messages in the way that could be. And like I said, a lot of this is all based on interpretation and things that aren't on paper, which is completely not what, you know, again, it's not what I focus on in my support for him. But so stand by, it could have just been a poor choice of words. I don't know. You know, it would be more asking him to elaborate on it. You know what I mean?
So I guess I'm trying to think of the best way to frame this. You're okay with a president who is not only a poor speaker, but repeatedly, daily demonstrates bad behavior. That's all okay, as long as you like what's on paper? Because I mean, for example, like here, let me give another example. Let's say every Saturday night when I hang out with Rick, I make racist jokes. And I continue to say it.
It won't happen.
No, of course it won't happen, because I'm a decent human
facetious.
It's true. At what point do you say, okay, look, Ethan, you're just being an asshole now. You're not getting tripped up over your words. This is clearly an accurate representation of who you are as a person, and I can't stand behind that.
So here's my issue too. At the end of the day, let's say Rick was okay with it. Let's say you made all kinds of jokes and Rick thought they were funny. It's not necessarily to, you know, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that that's okay or that's the way it is with you guys. But like, for example, I have a group of friends. 2 of them are roommates and one of them's gay, and like he calls them all kinds of names. Like he's my, you know, the housework. He does all the cleaning and stuff like that. Huh?
He's not the president of the United States that has an entire nation listening to him. So I don't really care what your neighbor says. This is the president we're talking about.
And again, at the end of the day, if I could make him more politically correct or better speaker or a better way of catering to people's feelings, I would change that. But that's not why I support him. And that, at the end of the day,
Katie,
at the end of the day,
wait, hold on. If I may jump in real quick here.
Stop either of them from getting elected. Me not voting isn't going to change that one of them is going to be president. That's what you guys aren't seeming.
I accept that. I accept that, but not
No,
supporting
I do.
a man who has continually demonstrated racist and sexist behavior would send a powerful message. Hey, we, the Republican Party, no longer stand behind this behavior. That's pretty powerful.
Well, let me just also say, though, being both black and gay, the Republican Party and Trump aren't benefiting people who are like me. So let me just throw that out there, especially with the election of their new justice, who decided long ago to receive funding from a organization that actually wanted or believes that homosexuality should be criminalized, right? So let's just be clear that we're supporting someone who also is putting into a position in our Supreme Court, someone that's going to sway the rights.
Outside of whoever she's
freedoms that we have as Americans already,
so outside of whoever she's receiving money from and whatever the media has said about her, what do you know about her? Because she's actually very strict for the Constitution. She is a Catholic. She does have her beliefs. But at the end of the day, she is very strict by the Constitution. And at the end of the day,
it remains to be seen. We'll see. We'll see what happens, because they're dead set on putting her in a position and going back on their word of waiting until after the election. Well, at least the governor of, or the senator of North Carolina or South Carolina, whatever his name was.
And that's my point. If you look at her as an actual person, a lot of these claims, a lot of this feedback on what kind of person she is only coming out of the ideas because Trump nominated her. At the end of the day, people are calling her a nutcase because she has religious beliefs. A lot of Americans have religious beliefs, but she has made it very clear that that doesn't affect her judgments, and she's very about the Constitution and following things in that way, and she keeps that separate. There are plenty of people that believe in God, that are religious, that aren't against people being gay and aren't against, everybody having rights to be the kind of person that they want to be.
The Republican Party is not in favor of marriage equality. Let's be clear, right? And I know you don't identify as a Republican, but I'm saying the Republican Party doesn't. And our current administration, or reproductive rights, and our current administration is running on the platform, and I call this out to anyone who runs on that platform, especially being someone who is marginalized specifically by a party, specifically the Republican Party here in this case. You have a party that does not support all equality.
We lost you.
That's opinionated.
Rick, you totally broke up. So real quick, while Rick's getting reconnected, I do want to jump back on track and find out specifically what Donald Trump has done that, like, on paper, that you would which makes you support him.
All right. So like I said, one of the biggest health fraud busts in U.S. history was made by the Trump administration. The fight against
I didn't hear the first part. It cut out.
Oh, sorry. Can you still hear me?
Yeah,
Are we good? Okay. Yeah. So at the end of the day, the Trump administration made the biggest health fraud bust in U.S. history, and this was over $1 billion. At the end of the day, he's one of the first presidents that have fought this idea of over-prescribing people and keeping them reliant on drugs and the legal prescription of opiates. And that's something really great. And that keeps people from being, kept under this chain of, dependency. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, keep going.
So that's something that's huge. We've also seen the fight against pedophilia, everything happening in Hollywood, Harvey Weinstein being convicted. And, and that's
Trump. Sorry, that has literally nothing to do with Donald Trump.
The Trump administration ran one of the biggest raids of child pornography in California.
What I'm saying is, what does that have to do with Harvey Weinstein? You brought Harvey in? Trump had nothing to do with Harvey Weinstein.
The same way that you guys that you guys were bringing up Trump with COVID. At the end of the day, since Trump has been elected, we've seen a war against pedophilia. And and you know what? I disagree. I think it does have to do with Trump, because a huge part of Trump getting elected was the idea of draining the swamp and getting the corruption out. And, pedophilia rings and stuff like that. Maybe he's not directly responsible, but this did start this movement.
Okay, so a few things. Opioid. I'm sorry about the dog. Opioid prescriptions are actually up, not down. So I don't think that Trump's done anything with that.
But in his first election year, he brought up the issue, and he has recognized this issue, and he's helped other people realize it. I mean, sure,
When you realize an issue, you have to do something about it. So,
and like I said, it's a start. $1.4 billion is a lot of money. And at the end of the day, these are all busts of people that were a part of, over-prescribing. And it's a start. At least we're starting that war.
Okay. Moving on, because there are so many things we got to touch base on. I do have one question I really wanted to ask early on. Do you stand behind the slogan, "Make America Great Again"?
I do.
When was America great?
The time that people were proud to be American, and at the end of the day, people wanted to call themselves American. I feel like, yeah, no, a time, not necessarily.
Time period of when America was great.
Not necessarily. I'm only 25 years old. I couldn't tell you, but
So
at the end of the day, I know
when America was great, but you want it to be great again. How can you want it to be great if you're not even sure when it was great?
Because I see people like the boomer generation, which I know we hear a lot of negative things about. And sure, there are plenty of flaws of that generation, and there's a lot of things that they aren't kept on because of how times have changed. But at the end of the day, so many more people were proud to be American back then. People were proud of their country. People were willing to, even the amount of people that were informed and actually cared about politics.
Did you say a time period, though?
No.
Okay, but when? So here's the thing. I mean, you can say "Make America Great Again," and it was great once, but when is what I'm looking for. Are we talking 1822? Are we talking 1920? Are we talking 2000? When specifically was America great?
I think it's an irrelevant question, because at the end of the day, it's a downward slope. We're at a low point of patriotism. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it is
patriotism.
No, at the end of the day, we're on a downward slope, because it doesn't matter if it's 1822 or 1920, whatever. At the end of the day, we're at a low point where people of my generation don't care about politics. They don't care who's running their country. We're at a point where people, seem to hate other Americans and hate each other.
I don't disagree with that, but if we're talking about, and this is where I'm trying to hammer you down, because "Make America Great Again" is a very clear statement, which would require a time for when it was great. Now, are we talking when women weren't able to vote? Was that when America's great? Are we talking when blacks were still, slaves? When
All right, how about this? For a random possibility for me, I'll go with like the 90s, a time where it kind of seemed like race mattered a little less. Where people of the LGBTQ community were killed and beaten regularly and insulted. Right? This is why I don't want to give a specific time, because you're just going to take whatever's negative of that time and say, "Oh, well, that's why it's Make America Great Again." America was never great. I disagree. We have the capability to be okay. In what areas are we great? Is it healthcare, because we're low on that? Is it school or education? Because I don't even believe we're in the top 10. Let me double check that. Is it income? Is it? Oh, wait, I know.
It is the amount of people in prison. We have a substantially higher incarceration rate. So we're great there. Where else is America great?
Are you talking, like I said, the idea of trying to get back to being great?
But okay, what was great? At no point were we number one in any of these categories. So when were we this great? Because I can tell you right now, from everything I've seen about Switzerland, they seem to be way better off than us. And I'm sure you can bring up the point that, yes, they have less of a population, but they seem to be doing much better than us. So
again,
you could give an example of what is great. Is it
based about patriotism? And again, it's not because America is perfect in any sense or because of what they're good at. It's about people caring about their country and loving their country. Not everybody saying, I can't wait till I can move out of this country. That's where we need to go back to making America great again, where people love their country. And instead of saying, I hate this country, I need to leave it. You know what? I don't even call myself American. I call myself German or, whatever place of origin you come from. It's the idea that you want to say, yeah, we got problems, but I love my country and I want to make it better. I want to focus.
I want to make it better, which is why I do this. So the whole make America great again, it sounds like the only thing you want to be great is patriotism. I don't give a shit about patriotism.
Oh my goodness. No, see, that's where you're drawing the wrong conclusion. Because if you're patriotic, if you care about your country, if you love your country, if you're not saying, if you're not sitting there saying, if it were me, oh no, I'm not American, I'm German. You're not going to want to care about fixing the problems of your country. You're not going to want to care about the politics and, actually.
So, okay, if I say I'm Italian because I have Italian heritage, that means I don't care about America?
No. Oh my gosh. See, and again, it's.
No, I'm trying to understand your position here.
You're fine. But at the end of the day, my point is people act like they're ashamed to be American nowadays. That's something that needs to change. And at the end of the day, people need to be willing to admit, sure, there are problems. But instead of saying, I hate my country because of it, and I don't care, and I don't want to pay attention to it, or I just want to leave, we need people to say, I care about this problem and I want to fix it because I do love America and I do love what we stand for the freedom, for being able to be your own person and stuff like that. That is my point. People need to be proud to be an American and accept the flaws and be willing to fix them. Because like I said, our generation is a generation that has gotten lazy, that doesn't care about politics. We have a low amount of people voting. We have a low amount of people that actually care about outside of presidential elections. How many people know what's going on in their local government? How many people know who their governor is?
So I hear a lot of things getting thrown out, but I'm not hearing a direct argument. So for example, let's go after this freedom thing. In 2019, the freest countries were New Zealand, Switzerland, and Hong Kong, not the US. So knowing that, what do we have that these other countries don't? Because granted, I like my country. I love my country. Am I proud of it? Nope. Was I proud of it? Yeah. But I am actually ashamed of my country and I am disgusted by our president. So what is so great about this country that we can't get elsewhere?
It's not about getting it elsewhere. It's about this being your home. It's about the history. It's about the tradition, which we do have. I know people try to talk about. I know people try to talk about, America being, oh, it's only X amount years old, so it can't have tradition or heritage. That's not true. We've been here long enough to the point where this is our home. This is where our families grew. This is where things have been, invented and made and created, and we have beautiful things here.
What is a beautiful thing we have? Okay, I'm trying to pick out the fallacy you're using, and I'm struggling with it. But you're throwing a lot of things out there, but you're not actually hammering down something. So can you give me something that is great about this country that other countries don't have? Because if not, that whole make it great. I mean, I guess I just don't understand that. So if you could give me like a specific example of something great in this country that makes it stand apart from other countries.
There's no country that has that. At the end of the day, yeah, there's other countries that are going to be free. There are other countries that have people in it that have invented amazing things and have been able to do incredible things. That's not something that you're going to, no country is out there can say, oh, well, you know, sure, maybe number one in education or something like that. That doesn't mean other countries don't also have good education that they can be proud of. So I guess I don't have an answer for that because I don't really think there is an answer for any country to answer that.
Well, we're focused on our country. We got to wrap up in just a few minutes. So in the comments, if you have any questions, if you could quickly tag me so I can ask Katie. Okay, so just covering this Make America Great. I'm trying to think of the best way to word this, but every time I ask, like prior to you coming on, I spoke very highly of you. Rick can tell you this. I said you are, you know, a force to be reckoned with, and I was like, you know, I was nervous, but I'm not seeing anything with this Make America Great. Again, it sounds like the same rhetoric Trump and other Republicans say, and I give you more credit than that. I'm looking for something specific here, because if you can't, again, it's just words. Make America great. Okay, how, why, where, when was it great? We need to answer these questions before we make these broad statements.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, at the end of the day, Make America Great Again means having people that are proud of their country, kids that actually look up to politics. And, you know, by the time that...
You want to look up to Trump?
Okay, the minute it left my mouth, I realized that was a poor choice of words, and I get that. But like I said, a huge reason on why Trump got elected in the first place was the whole idea of draining the swamp. And hopefully one day we do have a country where kids can look up to leaders. But at the end of the day, I get that that's not right now. But my point is Make America Great Again is a time where people look at each other and can say, we're all Americans. We are all one. And you know what? I know that that's still not a point that we have reached yet. And you know what? Unfortunately, with the way the media works, with the way people work, hearing difference in opinions, it's not going as well as I'd hope it would. But that's the idea. It's the idea of people being able to disagree and talk and say, but you know what? We are all American and we stand as one. And we care about our country, and we love our country, and we love each other.
You know what, Kay? We found an agreement. I agree. We should be able to work together as one. Can you ask your president to do that? And ask him and stop blaming the left. Stop blaming, not you, I'm talking about him. Stop blaming the fucking left. Stop blaming the media. For once, can this asshole be accountable for anything?
And like I said, so, and here's the thing too. Like I said, I have a lot of reasons why I support him. His number one flaw is that he fails to say I'm the president of everyone, the left and right included. He fails to stop blaming the left and to stop finger pointing. And I agree with you on that. But at the end of the day, that's not enough for him. And like I said, if there were an option that didn't have that, I'd be all for it. But at the end of the day, I feel like that's everywhere in politics nowadays. And at the end of the day, I agree, it's his biggest flaw. But like I said, one of these guys is going to get elected, whether we want them to or not. And out of our options, I'm basing it off of the person that has given me things on paper and not, you know, going on. Yeah.
So I guess my two last questions would be, you don't have let me have you, let's pretend you have a kid, okay? Would you be comfortable with that child reading all of Donald Trump's tweets and watching everything he said and knowing his history and saying, hey, I want you to look up to this man. This man is our president. I'm proud of him.
So, you know, like I said, at the end of the day,
that's a yes or no question.
I'd let my kid look, you know, research it, but no, I wouldn't necessarily say to look up to him. I wouldn't say for him to look up to any politician nowadays. nowadays. Okay. Like I said, at the end of the day, a part of making America great again is having people be active members of politics and caring about politics so that we can start saying, hey, we don't want these guys, but there's a guy over here that's a good guy that would be a great leader for this country. That's our biggest problem.
Okay. And then, oh crap, we lost you. And then I'll wait for it to come back. I do have one last question.
Ethan, I had to jump in for a second because it seems that
is politics. I think I'm back.
Yeah. Actually, I'm hoping we can do this again because one of the things you brought up is a favorite buzzword of mine that Trump loves using is this whole drain the swamp.
Oh,
yes. The swamp. Who is that? Can I get a list of people that he's draining? Because
every time I hear it, I think of
referring to. And in fact, I would argue that he is a member of said swamp, particularly because of how much he's avoided paying in taxes, his sexual harassment, with women, his refusal to outright condemn white supremacy, him telling the Proud Boys to stand by. I would say he's very much a part of the swamp. That being said, we got to wrap up. So, Katie, I would like, first of all, I'm going to give you like the last 2 minutes, so if you can say anything you'd like. But I would like to thank you for doing this. Originally, so everyone in the audience is aware, we were going to have 2 Republicans here, to try and make it more even. So, Katie, I really do appreciate you being a good sport because, it was us 2 kind of drilling you. And, I would have preferred it being, having 2 Republicans, but I really appreciate you going along with this. And, so yeah, anyway, so last 2 minutes, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah. At the end of the day, I think it would have been a little bit easier if at least when I had a sidekick or 2, at least kind of a little bit of an idea on how the agenda was going to go, because if I would have known I was going to be talking more on, the emotional side and the more political correctness side instead of what I was more focused on, I probably could have done things a little bit differently. But aside from that, like I said, it's not like I support everything that Trump does or how he always is. But at the end of the day, we only have 2 options, and out of my 2 options, that's the one I'm gonna pick. And it's strictly based on paper because I don't think either of them seem like decent human beings or seem like good-hearted people for my kids to look up to. No, right. Realistically, no politicians at this point in time probably are people I would ever want my kids looking up to. But until I run the world, and like I said, I hope that more people my age start to get involved in politics outside of just presidential elections. The more people we get involved in, the more people we get to care. That's how you make America great again, and that's how you get good politicians in here instead of the same, douchebag and shit sandwich that we are getting.
All right, so you agree that one is a douchebag and one is a shit sandwich?
I never disagree with that. And like I said, maybe I tried to defend him a little bit more than in general I usually would. But at the same time, I didn't really get to talk about the things that I do care about and the things that have made me lean towards him. Which, by the way, like I said, if I had more options, there'd probably be a different choice for me. But I only got 2 people that are going to make it to presidency.
So that's actually originally the focus of this. So I would like to, and you don't have to answer now, we'll talk in the green room after the show, but I would like to invite you back so we could target everything you do support him for, the policies, the things you think he'd done. I'd love to, have you back and give you the opportunity to present those arguments.
Yeah, and hopefully we have less technical issues at that point.
I'm going to take you off screen for just a moment.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry for the technical difficulties, and I apologize that our other guest wasn't able to make it. It seems both of our guests were having issues with the internet, with their webcam. So sorry about that. Anyways, every Wednesday at 5 p.m., we are going to be doing this leading into the election. And in fact, we may add in a call-in feature. Next week, I'm hoping to kind of rotate, bring some other Republicans on. I am going to talk to Katie, see if she's willing to come back. I can't blame her if she doesn't want to because she did get pushed pretty hard by myself and Rick. And, I do want to keep it balanced and I don't want anyone, can't talk. I don't want anyone to ever come on my show and feel like they were, ganged up on. So anyways, I want to thank my patrons real quick. If I should have had that up. Marsha Filipello, best name ever, and Cynthia McDonald. You guys are awesome. If you could consider showing your support for as little as $1 a month by going to patreon.com/YFNA news. We are here every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Then Mondays is the 13%, hosted by one Arthur Ward and Cynthia McDonald. And then just after this show, actually beginning in 15 minutes on my other channel, Your Friendly Neighborhood Atheist, I will be producing the first ever LGBTQIA plus Atheist Roundtable. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. And remember one thing, I don't have my co-host here, so I guess I'll have to do without him. But as long as there is racism to fight, there will always be in black and white. Good night, everyone.